Hello and welcome to Useful Idiots Monday Morning, where we watch the Sunday morning news show so that you don't have to. I'm Katie Halper.
I'm Maté. Good morning. Great to start the week with you and some of the worst people on corporate TV. Thanks so much for being here. Our website is usefulidiotspodcast.com. Go there to support the show and get bonus content.
Also support the show by giving a thumbs up, giving it a like, because that's a way to beat back against the algorithmic suppression. And it's a very important thing to do. And also subscribe if you haven't.
Well, speaking of suppression, we're going to have to suppress a lot of rage today listening to some of these people and the warmongering that is happening as the U.S. continues to bomb Iran and Israel is continuing to bomb Iran as well, but also bomb Lebanon, because why not, right? When you're in a war with one country, why not expand another one? And that's what Israel right now is doing in Lebanon. And
they're well-rounded. They're versatile.
We're going to try to cover as much as we can today. Let's start off with our weekly recap from Meet the Depressed.
Good Sunday morning. With the war in Iran entering its third week, President Trump told me in a phone interview Saturday that Iran has been defeated militarily. He also said Tehran is ready to make a deal, but the terms aren't good enough yet, declining to say what those terms are. The president added that he is hearing the new supreme leader is dead.
Yeah, the president declined to say what those terms are because he doesn't know what he's doing. And he's also lying about Iran being ready to make a deal. Iran has now been attacked by the U.S. and Israel for 2 times in less than a year while they were negotiating. And so Iran is now like, all right, like you've launched 2 rounds of aggression against us. You've hit our infrastructure. You massacred more than 160 children at one school. We have to make sure this doesn't happen again. Right. So the idea that now Iran is demanding a deal when really their only goal is to try to inflict enough damage on the U.S. and Israel and everyone else who's involved in this assault on them, so this doesn't happen again. He's just completely out of touch. And of course, you know, our corporate press accepts whatever he's saying, or with a little skepticism, but still not nearly enough as is warranted.
Right. And of course, you know, part of the reason why is because not only does the United States lie, but they literally attack like mid-negotiation.
Yes.
So making them even more trustworthy.
Yeah. And then lie through their teeth about what happened at the negotiations. Right. Like Steve Witkoff is still going around running his mouth saying that Iran told him that they were going to build 11 nuclear bombs. Like the government that reached a nuclear deal to not build a nuclear bomb.
Such liars.
That wanted to reach another nuclear deal to not build a nuclear bomb after Trump tore up the first one. Then, according to Steve Witkoff, turned around and said, yeah, we're going to go and build 11 nuclear bombs.
Yeah. Very, very plausible. And part of the reason that people even try to say this stuff is because they're so used to portraying and having the media eat it up, portraying Iranians as these crazy, irrational warmongers, which they're not. I mean, the government could not be more, the contrast between them and the United States in terms of restraint and striking civilians could not be any greater. But it's partly because they are go unchecked in that characterization that people will even begin to take seriously the idea that Iran would say something like that.
Yeah, well, occasionally when Trump is talking, some honesty will slip through. So a few times he said, yeah, the reason why we attack now is because they've never been weaker.
Right.
So on the one hand, there's existential threat. They're going to wipe out Israel and all the Gulf states, and they're going to hit the U.S. Then he says, yeah, they've never been weaker. So this is a good moment to hit them.
Right.
You know
that is one that is so on its face ridiculous that even our very malleable war ready media will ask about that.
If you're watching this now live and you're wondering why we're so tiny on your screen, it's probably because you're in the whatever it's called, the vertical feed. There's 2 now. So on our YouTube page, you can go to there and there will be a normal one. There's a normal one and a vertical one.
Yeah.
Check out the normal one. It's there for you. Okay.
Did not provide evidence, and all eyes are on the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most vital shipping lanes for oil. Iran has all but shut it down, pushing oil prices over $100 a barrel. The president telling me the U.S. is working with other countries to try to secure the strait, while acknowledging Iran could still make trouble by dropping mines to try to blow up ships in transit.
Yeah, what Trump means by working with other countries to try to secure the strait is he's begging other countries to send their ships and risk the crew's lives because of his own reckless decision to bomb Iran. And Iran, knowing that it can't match the U.S. and Israel militarily, because we're talking about the two most powerful militaries in the world, or two of them, and also two countries that have like spent decades preparing for a regime change war, where Iran's just trying to defend itself. So what Iran has tried to do is use the leverage it has, which includes closing the Strait of Hormuz to aggressor countries to try to put pressure on their economy so that they'll stop participating in the bombing of Iran. That's what they're trying to do. And Trump is begging other countries to help bail him out because of what he pushed everybody into.
Right. Disgusting.
With Iran vowing to keep the strait effectively closed, President Trump ordered strikes Friday on Iran's Karg Island, Iran's main oil hub. The president telling me Karg Island has been decimated, though he may hit it again, quote, just for fun. He said he does not expect to send U.S.
Sadist.
Just for fun?
Yeah.
You're a leader of a country, like let alone the most powerful one in the world, and you're talking about bombing people just for fun? I mean, that's a really obscene statement that I think if a president, like imagine if Putin said, I'm bombing Ukraine just for fun.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll probably get some headline news, I think.
Yep.
Trump saying, what a character. He's so colorful.
Right.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's an important point. I don't think any guest or any member of the administration was asked, what did President Trump mean when he said for fun? Or are you concerned that President Trump said he might strike for fun?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's, I mean, not only would it make headlines, it would be part of every single question from shows like this. And it is insane that she then will talk to people from the administration, doesn't ask them about that.
In fact, I think we're going to see the only person to bring it up on the Sunday shows was the Iranian foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, who we're going to see shortly raise the issue. And otherwise, people are like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
A president bragging about bombing the country just for fun. Why not? Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Of course, he would raise the issue. It makes total sense. But unfortunately, none of the news professionals would. Yeah. It's only the person at the receiving end of the potentially fun attacks.
And by the way, I'm pretty sure the military infrastructure that he bombed on Karg Island in Iran was defensive, right? Because of course that's really what the U.S. is targeting, is Iran's defensive military infrastructure, because its offensive military infrastructure is really aimed at defending itself, because it's been under threat from the U.S. and Israel for more than 47 years. So when they talk about how we're having so much success destroying Iran's military, yeah, you're going after a country that's trying to defend itself, and you're blowing up its capacity to do that. So congratulations.
And you know what's interesting is speaking of what the media doesn't talk about, there's not one mention, I don't think, in all of Meet the Press of the civilian death toll in Iran.
That is definitely a recurring theme.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Troops onto the island to secure the oil. Now, so far, the conflict has claimed the lives of 13 service members. With Americans worried about rising prices at the pump, President Trump told me gas prices will drop precipitously as soon as the war is over, reiterating his message earlier this week in Kentucky.
But oil prices are already coming back down, and it's going to come down. But we're not leaving until that job is finished, and it's going to be very fast. It's going to be very fast.
And
wow.
It's all going to be okay. Don't worry. I started this ridiculous war of aggression on a completely phony pretext. I've not only, caused real destruction inside of Iran and also death, and which is expanding to Lebanon and global economic turmoil. But don't worry, everything's going to be fine when it's over at a date of my choosing. And you know what he said about that? He said, it will be over when I feel it in my bones. That's what we have to rely on, everybody. Amazing. Is Donald Trump feeling in his bones when it's time for him to call off his war of aggression in Iran.
Well, maybe when it stops being fun.
Or, yes, I think that's probably the metric he will use. I'm not having fun anymore. Let's call it quits. Let's call it quits.
And you know what's interesting is that I don't think the other shows, I'm not 100% sure, but from watching and searching the transcript, I could have missed something. They could have phrased it in a different way, but I don't think the other shows mentioned the 13 service members killed.
Yeah. Well, the toll of U.S. soldiers sacrificed for Benjamin Netanyahu has grown, and You certainly see more attention to their lives than to
Oh
the
yeah,
lives of
definitely,
Palestinians.
right. Yes.
You know, it's like boring. A bunch of schoolgirls massacred. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to.
I mean, to be fair, it's like that's so like old style news. Like we've been seeing that through Gaza. So what's the big deal? It's not even newsworthy for these people.
Yeah. All right, let's get
Not that
to.
they really covered in Gaza either, but
let's get to the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi.
Said this weekend he is not ready to make a deal with Iran because the terms aren't good enough yet. His administration is saying this war could last another 3.5 weeks or so. Has Iran asked for a ceasefire?
No, we never asked for a ceasefire, and we have never asked even for negotiation. We are ready to defend ourselves as long as it takes. And this is what we have done so far, and we continue to do that.
So Trump says the opposite. We heard him tell Kristen Welker there that Iran's begging for a ceasefire, and he's saying no, we haven't even asked them for negotiations. In this case, I'm going to go with the Iranian foreign minister over Donald Trump, who's lied about every single possible thing. When it comes to the war.
Until President Trump comes to the point that this is an illegal war with no victory, and there are people being killed only because President Trump wants to have fun. This is what he has said.
Have fun?
We are not.
yeah.
Yes, this is what he said, that they are sinking, ships and targeting different places because it is fun.
It's kind of pathetic that the foreign minister of Iran has to deliver what should be newsworthy information, something that Margaret Brennan not only knows about, but actually brings up. And she sounds pretty shocked. So, Margaret, I hope you're watching this show right now, because you're probably learning a lot more that you don't know.
If Abbas Araghchi ever wanted to step down from, foreign service, he'd be a much better host of a Sunday morning news show. He'll deliver news that they won't deliver or they're not aware of, including that their president is bragging to destroy another country for fun.
Right.
The Secretary of War has said that there is no mercy. And this is actually a war crime. Even saying that is a war crime. So this is a war. This is a war of choice by President Trump and the United States, and we are going to continue our self-defense.
Well,
yeah, he's referring there to Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, being like, "Yeah, we're going to show them no quarter," and that, as Abbas Araghchi says, there is illegal to brag about showing no mercy to, let's say, if you capture an Iranian soldier, if they end up doing a ground invasion, which they've talked about doing, and you're bragging about showing them no quarter, no mercy, that is a war crime. And Pete Hegseth openly bragged about it, just as he bragged about how he'd loosened the rules of engagement, which helped make it easier for his forces that he oversees to kill a bunch of school children at an elementary school in one of their first strikes.
Right. Or just like he thought it was funny to have like a children's book based on some, I don't know, children's book. He made it about killing people in the Caribbean Sea. He turned a children's book into that.
Yes. What a lovely collection of guys we got in the White House right now.
Yeah. And these are Christians who really follow the message of Jesus Christ.
Oh, yes. Okay, let's hear more from the Iranian foreign minister.
Ask you again about the negotiations. Iran has declared it has 440 kilos or so of nuclear material. Where is that material now? Who has custody of it?
Well, we have not declared. This is verified and declared by the agency.
This
is not a secret. This is not a secret, The agency have said in his many reports the exact amount of our enriched, nuclear material.
Yes. So where is it now? Who has custody of it?
So they are under the rubbles. Our nuclear facilities were attacked, and everything is under the rubbles. Of course, there is the possibility to retreat them, but under the supervision of the agency. If one day we come to the conclusion to do that, it would be under the supervision of the agency. But for the time being, we have no program, we have no plan to recover them from under the rebels.
Am I understanding?
So we're basically, we're counting on Iran to, in the face of being attacked twice in less than a year by U.S. and Israel, while conducting diplomacy on not having a nuclear program. We're basically relying on them to continue to show restraint and not conclude, after being attacked twice under the guise of diplomacy, that they should go for a nuclear weapon. And as is being discussed there's a stockpile of 60% enriched uranium, which could be used to award a nuclear weapon if they decide to reverse the current policy of not having one. So Trump is really, on top of all the chaos he's causing right now, if anything, he's raised the chances that Iran decides to go for a nuclear weapon as a means to defend itself. And I don't know what they're going to do. The previous Ayatollah, Khamenei, was very devout in his belief that there should be no nuclear weapons, and now his son is in power. So maybe the son will continue that, or maybe he won't. But Trump is gambling here. He's really gambling.
Yeah, he literally had like a fatwa against it. Like an order not to do it. Yeah. But this happens all the time, is that, the United States kills leaders, and then the leaders that replaces the leader is actually more, I don't want to say hostile, because that sounds like vilifying, but is less conciliatory than the one that they killed.
All right. Well, let's turn to the Trump administration's perspective. For the second week in a row, they didn't really put out any of their major national security people, like Marco Rubio. He's not around. JD Vance, he's nowhere to be found. Tulsi Gabbard, of course, totally AWOL. So instead of breaking out more like economic people, because I guess if you're a national security person, you have to answer more questions like, hey, like, why are we waging this war? And like, why are you killing a bunch of civilians? So they don't really want to get those questions. So again, they need to bring out people like Energy Secretary Chris Wright to tell us that, hey, don't worry about the rising price of gas. Everything is totally fine. So here's Chris Wright.
Imagine in Iran that's nuclear armed with a massive weapons arsenal to surround those nuclear weapons. This is why President Trump needed to act now, to stop the killing of American soldiers, to stop the destabilization in the region, and
President Trump needed to act now over a nuclear weapons program that Iran doesn't have,
right,
and was negotiating over. And then he says we needed to stop Iran from killing U.S. soldiers, when Trump's decision to go to war has led to the deaths of U.S. soldiers, at least 13 now so far.
But Aaron, to be fair, we don't know what he's feeling in his bones when he makes those decisions. So it may not be logical, but maybe it's bone for us, but maybe it's a logical bone-based decision.
Bone-based foreign policy. Yeah,
exactly.
That's really what it is. It's bone-based foreign policy, and also fan fiction foreign policy, because a lot of it is like, in the future, what if Iran did this? Then what would you be saying to President Trump? Huh? If Iran did this,
if Iran bone-based sci-fi.
Everything is sci-fi, exactly. Like Iran was going to build up nuclear weapons from behind a missile shield that, of course, we could penetrate in a second if we wanted to with our own nuclear weapons, because unlike Iran, the U.S. and Israel have nuclear weapons.
Right.
Yet somehow, because they don't have nuclear weapons, it's a threat if they one day might, even though they don't want to have nuclear weapons, and they've negotiated multiple times over not having one for good. If you just stop suffocating their economy with crippling sanctions. That's the only thing. What they want is basically stop suffocating our economy with crippling sanctions. And Trump and Israel are like, nope, sorry. Let's go to war.
They're like, no, they want to kill us. They're crazy. They're crazy killers. Yeah. I like bone-based sci-fi. I think we just started a new genre.
That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah. Boneheaded.
Iran's ability to threaten energy markets. Yes, we go through this period of short-term disruption, but better to do it now than to have a nuclear-armed Iran.
Are you really sure it's going to be?
Once more, just a reminder, they weren't going to become a nuclear weapon armed Iran. And to the extent that if that does happen, it will be in large part because of what the United States did. And because Iranians feel like a lot of them were already feeling like they were being duped by the United States. And now even more of them do.
All right. So rather than telling Chris Wright that, like, hey, like, you just said all this stuff that's false, like including that Iran wanted to get nuclear weapons, and you just basically blamed Iran for a bunch of things that Trump has started himself, and you're justifying a war of aggression based on fan fiction. Rather than pointing that out, the ABC News anchor Martha Raddatz responds with this.
Are you really sure it's going to be short term? Can you guarantee it'll just be weeks before prices go down?
So you just lied through your teeth about all these things to justify your war of aggression. And my question is, are you sure it's only going to take a couple of weeks? Are you sure about that?
Right, exactly. Yeah. We're gonna skip over the fact that you're lying about why this war is happening, and we're just gonna jump to how long it's gonna take.
Hey, there's no guarantees in wars at all. I can guarantee the situation would be dramatically worse without this military operation to defang the Iranian regime.
Oh, yes, it'd be so worse. First of all, something like 165 girls would still be alive.
Yeah.
Many
They
other
don't care,
civilians, many other civilians who've been killed by Trump's bombs, Trump and Netanyahu's bombs. Gas prices would be at their normal levels. The global economy would be functioning normally. You wouldn't have, and they even heaven forbid, if you had diplomacy, you wouldn't have to be worrying about the threat one day of an Iranian nuclear weapon, because Iran was fine to agree to not have one as long as you just lifted the sanctions, suffocating their economy.
Right.
But he wants us to believe that this turmoil that they've caused is somehow better than just having normal diplomacy and a normally functioning global economy.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the whole thing is it's based on a lie of Iran being this scary, irrational being that you just can't negotiate with and had to be defanged. Really, the snake here for using the fang metaphor is, of course, the United States and Israel.
The Straits of Hormuz, Martha, as you're implying, are very important for global commerce and for energy commerce, and they impact energy prices, as we're all seeing. They have used this threat for 47 years, and they've continued to build up their arsenal to make this threat graver and graver. In fact, it would soon be too hard for us to defang Iran if they were nuclear armed. So this is short-term pain to get through to a much better place, where the Middle East can no longer be held hostage by the one rogue nation in Iran.
This is what they said about Saddam Hussein, that, we can't wait because the next warning will come in the form of a mushroom cloud.
Right.
That's what Condoleezza Rice said. It's just fan fiction, fear mongering. They know it's a complete lie. The anchors know it's a complete lie, but they're allowed to come on TV and just lie through their teeth with no challenge whatsoever. The idea that, so he's saying that Iran has used the Strait of Hormuz to upend the global economy. Iran has blocked ships at times when it's been under assault. So in the 80s, when everybody, Europe, the Soviet Union, and the U.S. were all joining together to support Saddam Hussein in his war against Iran, that's when Iran started using its leverage in the Strait of Hormuz, because that's the leverage it has to try to stop everyone from teaming up against it. And a similar thing happened in the 2000s when harsher sanctions came into effect on Iran. Iran tried, stopping ships there to basically tell the world, hey, if you're going to choke our economy, we're going to do the same to yours. Try to do some of the same to yours. A fraction of what you do to us, we're going to do to you. It's trying to use the leverage that it has, which is exactly what the U.S. does all the time to bully people into submission. The difference with Iran is Iran does it in self-defense against foreign aggression.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's all. Imagine how different the world would be if the media were even remotely responsible. It would require pushing back, which I guess is awkward for them.
Everything they're accusing Iran of doing, being a threat, using, bullying people. It's what we do to them,
right.
And they respond with the only leverage they have, because they don't have the capability militarily. If they did have the capability militarily, we actually wouldn't be attacking them, because we don't attack people who actually can fight back at our level. So,
well, Aaron, there may be another reason that they're doing this despicable coverage. So this is from today's Guardian. Let's see. Trump backs FCC chair's threat to pull license of news outlets over Iran war coverage. U.S. president on social media said he was thrilled that Brendan Carr was looking into broadcasters' licenses. And let me just show a little bit of the article. Okay, here we go. In a True Social post Sunday night, Trump said he was thrilled that Carr was looking at the licenses of some of these corrupt and highly unpatriotic news organizations. They get billions of dollars of free American airwaves and use it to perpetuate lies. Carr wrote in a post on X on Saturday that broadcasters, quote, that are running hoaxes and news distortions, also known as the fake news, have a chance now to correct course before their license renewals come up. The law is clear. Broadcasters must operate in the public interest and they will lose their licenses if they do not. And something tells me that these hoaxes that he's talking about are things like, the truth, saying that Iran was not preparing to have a nuclear weapon, saying that this is a war of choice, etc.
Well, this is like, I think, the perfect storm of corruption because Trump threatens everyone because he's such a wannabe dictator that he demands full obedience. Even though corporate media outlets give him, I don't know, like 75% obedience and like
already,
don't challenge his lies, they can now turn around and say, "Look, we're doing our job. The president threatening us. We are so brave. We're truth tellers. We stand for free speech and a free press." Even as they continue to launder so many of Trump's lies, and certainly as we're seeing, and we'll see many more examples of not challenging them.
Right.
Okay, let's hear more from the Energy Secretary, Chris Wright.
Mr. Secretary, there's a big debate over whether you all were prepared for what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. If you were prepared, why is the Strait of Hormuz effectively closed right now?
Because it's right near the Iranian shoreline. The world is
brilliant.
Yeah.
It's so good. At least he's aware of where the Strait of Hormuz is.
That's true, yeah.
That when you attack a country with a act of illegal aggression, that yes, it is near the Strait of Hormuz, and yes, they can close it down because it's near the shoreline. It's good that he at least knows that part.
True.
Yeah,
that is true because Witkoff kept calling it the Gulf of Hormuz.
That's right. Witkoff was calling it the Gulf of Hormuz. Yes. Witkoff, who is overseeing not just the Iran file, but also Gaza and also the Ukraine war. And what a shocker that Steve Witkoff, a real estate guy who lies through his teeth, hasn't been able to accomplish any peace deals so far. Really, it's almost like Trump put him there because as sort of a joke on everyone, like the idea that his golfing buddy, a real estate guy, is going to broker any peace is like, ha, 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 ha. It's like a bit.
Yeah.
And certainly Steve Witkoff is doing his job of not brokering any diplomacy whatsoever.
More like a golfing buddy.
Yes. I mean, honestly, it's amazing. I never thought someone could make Antony Blinken look like a diplomat, but Steve Witkoff and Marco Rubio, who doesn't even bother to show up for any of these negotiations.
Right.
They've definitely even made Blinken look like a diplomat, which is a really tough feat. I
mean, it's easier. You do have kind of a leg up when you just go with someone who's not even has no background in it and whose background is real estate.
Yeah, and like you're expecting Steve Witkoff to like handle nuclear talks. Like,
right.
I don't think Steve Witkoff has a handle on basic nuclear issues, let alone all the complexities that go into brokering a new nuclear agreement with Iran, which clearly the Trump administration has no interest in doing. I think that's very clear by now.
Is abundantly supplied with oil and energy. We knew there would be a short-term disruption in energy flows, and to hear Chuck Schumer say that we didn't is just so he knows how foolish that is. And to say stuff to try to undermine the United States in the midst of a world-changing conflict just boggles my mind.
To say that Chuck Schumer, for Chuck Schumer to say that we didn't know that we were going to destroy the global economy, how dare he? Of course we knew we were going to cause turmoil.
Right,
of course we knew that. Yes. And our plan was to basically beg other countries to bail us out. And like Trump was saying, like other countries need to step up and send their tankers in when Iran has threatened them. So basically he's saying, hey, like, France and Germany, can you guys sacrifice some of your naval ships for our massive act of criminality, please? That's what basically Trump's strategy is right now.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, Chuck Schumer, support the troops and don't challenge the Trump administration massive screw up. It's a classic move. Same thing like with Iraq. If you criticize the Iraq war, all of a sudden you didn't support the troops. Same thing.
Exactly.
Now. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the next clip from Energy Secretary Chris Wright, because, the Strait of Hormuz is effectively closed if you're an ally of the U.S. And because of that, the price of oil is going to increase, as it already has. So what does that mean for ordinary people that Trump obviously does not care about? Let's Here, Chris writes, reassuring answer.
Price of a barrel of oil closed above $103 on Friday, and the Iranians are warning of prices hitting $200 a barrel. Mr. Secretary, should Americans be bracing for, should they be worried that this war will actually drive the price of oil above $200 a barrel?
So Iran for 47 years has called the United States the Great Satan. So because they call us the Great Satan, I don't think we are the Great Satan. In fact,
wow, what a great response to a very specific question about oil prices. Thank you. Hot take is let me respond to that, Welker, by saying Iran calls us the Great Satan. And newsflash, I'm going to break some news by saying I do not actually think we're the Great Satan.
So listen, if your energy costs are up now, just remember that some people in Iran have called your government the Great Satan for 47 years.
Yeah.
And
that would be, can you imagine like sitting at the kitchen table, like complaining to someone about the energy costs going up and like, wow, this is so painful for me. I'm really feeling it in my wallet. It's having a real impact on me. Well, you know what? Iran called us the Great Satan.
Yeah.
And we're not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Iran calls it the Great Satan because for example, our government supported Saddam Hussein,
right,
who we've called basically the devil and Hitler, as he tried to destroy Iran and killed hundreds of thousands of people. And that's when the U.S. and Iran started to be known as the Great Satan. Also because before this Iranian government came to power, they were supporting the Shah, who was torturing people,
right,
and brutally repressing dissent. So that's the origin story of the whole Great Satan thing. But regardless, look, if only our leaders could internalize what kids know with the rhyme, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words never hurt me. If only they could really just get that lesson. Yeah, words, sure. It's not nice to be called the Great Satan, but at the same time, it's just words. And they haven't attacked the U.S.
Right.
In fact, they've tried to make deals with the U.S., which the U.S. is continually broken.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, people in power have the temperament, I guess, that of below school-age children who can't tolerate some bad words, and therefore have to raise prices for everybody at the pump because somebody called us the Great Satan in Iran.
Yeah, but Aaron, it does make me wish that you were around with your what was your anti-bullying operation group when you were a child? The rock throwing gang.
The Rock Stoppers. Yes, the Rock Stoppers.
I mean, you were kind of like the United States, right? Like you were claiming that there was an imminent attack.
Yes, that's right. This is too long a story to get into, but it's deep in the useful idiots archives.
It's a good callback.
Yeah. But let's get to Mike Waltz. He is the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, where recently he threatened to have a fist fight with the Iranian ambassador, because why not, right? Since Trump brags about bombing Iran for fun, if you're Trump's top diplomat at the UN, why not threaten to have a fist fight with your Iranian counterpart? Anyway, here's Mike Waltz on Fox News Sunday.
Well, look, the Pentagon's job, Secretary Hegseth, Chairman Dan Kane, is to provide options to the president, to have forces that are trained, equipped, in position and ready for whatever he chooses to do as commander-in-chief. President Trump is ever going to take options off the table. And I can tell you, as a former special operator, we have forces that are dedicated to handling WMD all over the world, should we have to seize it from a road.
I was kind of amazed that he actually used the term WMD, because I'd like to think that that's shorthand now for lie.
Yeah.
For a war that was launched in vain, not actually in vain, but a war that destabilized the region, created a lot of terrorism, and was based on a lie. Or if you're a Bush fan, you would say it was based on a mistake, faulty intelligence. But no one thinks that was a good basis for war. At least no one says that out loud. No, at least people pretend not to think that.
Yeah. And so listen, things are going so badly for them that now they're openly floating the possibility of sending in U.S. Special Forces into Iran to somehow steal Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium. It sounds like one of these 80s action flicks that the Trump administration loves to like repurposed in social media clips. I don't know if you've seen like their social media where like they take like action movies, and like sort of like make that, and then like do like a clip, like a compendium of action movie clips, and like repurpose that to promote the war in Iran. So it's like this is their new fantasy, like a special forces raid to get Iran's enriched uranium. It's not a bad plot for a movie, but in real life it would be an absolute nightmare. And of course, I don't think these troops will get anywhere near the uranium. But it's what they're reduced to doing because they've created this threat. They've put Iran in a position where it has every incentive now to try to enrich so it can have a nuclear weapon so that it won't be attacked again by the U.S. and Israel, who have attacked it now twice in less than a year. And so this means they're not ruling out putting troops on the ground, right? Why not? Why not? Yeah. Okay. More Mike Waltz.
Nation or otherwise. But what I can tell you, I'm confident, is that this isn't going to be another 2003 Iraq. There are not going to be hundreds of thousands of troops occupying urban areas somewhere. Certainly not Tehran. But if the president...
Someone just asked, by the way, what's behind him? Yeah, what is that background behind him?
That looks like... that looks like a cartoon rendering, maybe of Mar-a-Lago. I don't know. Is that what Mar-a-Lago looks like?
Yeah, really. Maybe it's bizarre. Yeah, it looks like they like pulled down a screen or something. Yeah.
I mean, I think they're trying to project. I think they're trying to project optimism these days.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Rather than some drab, background of a cityscape, let's go to some garish cartoon rendering of an opulent estate or like a resort.
Exactly, or Legoland, as one commenter just pointed out. Yeah.
Yes.
Does have Legoland vibes. Yeah.
Yes.
Has to dedicate limited options, very focused, very targeted options. I'm confident that's something that the Pentagon, an option that the Pentagon can.
Okay, great. So listen. Yes, we're using all the same lies as Iraq. Yes, we're launching an act of aggression just like Iraq. But don't worry, guys. This is not going to be Iraq. Okay, we know what you're thinking. We know what you're thinking. You're thinking it's good. Don't worry about it. It's going to be totally fine. Okay.
Yeah, we talked about WMDs. Don't worry. It's nothing to do with that. With this is a war that's based on totally great intelligence.
Yes.
And if you don't believe us, then I just want to say that they call us the Great Satan, and newsflash, we're not. Hot take, we're not. Yeah.
They call us the Great Satan, but look at me. I'm in Candyland right now. Would the Great Satan be? Would the Great Satan be hanging out here in Candyland? I think not.
Yeah.
I think not. You don't see Satan in Candyland. So
exactly.
Yes. Very.
Although that could be another good action movie. Satan goes to Candyland.
And will provide him.
Well, to this issue of the enriched uranium that we know about, is it possible to declare an end to this or some sort of victory or mission accomplished short of getting control of that?
Well, again, there's all kinds of options that President Trump can choose. There's diplomatic options. There's the options of seizing it. We'll see what he decides to do with the Iranian leadership, however that turns out.
It looks like he's looking at a cue card. Do you see how he's like not looking at the camera or straight ahead? Looks like there's some notes written on the wall.
Diplomatic options. There's the options of seizing it. We'll see what he decides to do with the Iranian leadership, however that turns out. But at the end of the day, he's made it clear that Iran can never have a nuke. And I just want to reemphasize, President Trump has been clear on that point for many years in his 2016 campaign, his 2020 campaign, his 2024 campaign. You would think from all the critics out there that he just kind of invented this red line. In fact, he's been very clear on it. And I think one of the things that the American people wanted when they reelected President Trump was a commander-in-chief that lives up to his red lines, unlike his predecessors in Presidents Obama and Biden. So
what he's doing here, he's trying to respond to critics, especially in the conservative camp, who are like, hey, we voted for President Trump because he was talking about no new wars, and he was criticizing previous wars like Iraq and claiming he was against them. And he was warning that if Kamala Harris came to power, there might be a military draft, and that there'd be another war in the Middle East. And so he said, that's what a lot of Trump's own supporters are saying. Mike Waltz is saying, hey, I'm sorry. Trump actually said that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. And I think people endorsed him for that. You think people voted for Trump because he said Iran shouldn't have a nuclear weapon, or because he said that there would be no new wars, especially since Iran not having a nuclear weapon was a promise that Iran had already made under the nuclear deal that Trump tore up.
Exactly.
It was willing to make again.
I was just going to say, if he cared so much about that, right, and not having them have a nuclear deal, why did he tear up the JCPOA that was preventing them from getting a nuke?
And another point I want to make is you're hearing Mike Waltz say, like, people also were sick of Obama and Biden not living up to their red lines.
Right.
Well, first of all, he's not talking about the red line that Biden drew in Gaza when Biden said, if they go into Rafah, that's a red line for me, because Mike Waltz supported obliterating Rafah along with every other part of Gaza. He's talking about Obama not enforcing the so-called red line in Syria, where Obama said, if I see chemical weapons being used by either side, by the way, that might change my calculus on intervention. And he's been portrayed as weak for that. And this underscores to me why it's important when there's a claim against an adversary state that justifies U.S. military intervention. It's important to be skeptical and look at all the evidence. And that's what I tried to do on the chemical weapons thing. And there's so much evidence that undermines the allegation that actually a red line was crossed by the former Syrian government. But everybody ignored that because there was a clamor for military interventions. That's why it's important, it's just a reminder, to be skeptical of claims that bring a nation to war.
Yeah, very good idea. And, if you're called an Assadist, I like this line from you, Aaron, that people who call you Assadists, they themselves are actually sadists.
They're a sadist. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Okay. Let's go more from Mike Waltz on, hey, yeah, listen, we know we started this whole thing. It was totally unprovoked, unnecessary, but please help us out now with the Strait of Hormuz, which we forced Iran to essentially cut off to global commerce.
Its point of leverage is obviously the Strait of Hormuz, and that is something that continues to be in contention. The president put out on Truth Social yesterday, in part, he says this, that hopefully China, France, Japan, South Korea, the UK, and others that are affected will send ships to the area. There are reports overnight, too, that the UK may have some mine detection drones that may get involved. Any update on where some of those partners may be on actually physically assisting in the Straits?
Well, Shannon, another important point that I think is getting kind of lost in the noise here, 80% of the oil that's coming out of the Gulf is heading to Asia. Actually, thanks to President Trump's energy dominance agenda, only 7, 8, 9% is coming to the United States. So it's absolutely correct for President Trump to call on the world to come help make sure their energy supplies are secure. Enough is enough with Iran holding the world hostage. This goes back many.
Enough is enough with Iran holding the world hostage, which, again, Iran has done after the U.S. and Israel attacked it with a flagrant violation of the UN Charter. And so it's using the leverage it has. It's like the U.S. holds everybody hostage by controlling global commerce with sanctions. So, for example, if you're a country that's outside of U.S. control, the U.S. can destroy your economy with sanctions. That's called holding someone hostage, I think. And then also with the constant threat of military force, as the U.S. has done now with Iran and also with Venezuela. It's kind of holding a country hostage, I think, if you surround them with the most powerful weaponry in the world, tell them, unless you do our bidding, let us control your resources, as the U.S. has done in Venezuela and now wants to do in Iran, or else we're going to bomb you. I don't know. That sounds like a hostage-taking operation to me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, we are. I mean, again, we're no Satan.
Yeah, and it sounds especially funny coming from Candyland.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's really hard to take. It's really hard to take seriously.
I know
with that background.
He looks satanic, though. He really does. I mean, yeah. Also, why would you mention that? Like, you're not supposed to mention things that you don't want people. It's very weird. Very bad. Like talking points. Very bad media prep. You don't go in there and quote some vilifying quote about you. I don't know why he thought that would be a good idea. I guess he was that desperate because there's really nothing he can say about rising oil prices.
Yeah.
So he's trying to like appeal to people's like jingoism and the sticks and stones psychology that they haven't internalized yet.
And he wants Russia and China to come and help. Like, are you kidding? especially when part of the motive for the Trump team in doing this is to like weaken China and Russia, because if in Trump's grand plan he gets control of Iran. Lindsey Graham talked about this last week. He's like, between Venezuela and Iran, that's like 31% of the world's oil. So when you control that oil, then you have even more control of the world. And given that given that China gets a lot of its energy from Iran and other sources via the Strait of Hormuz, if you control that, then all of a sudden you have huge leverage over China. And now you're going to ask China to come and help you out. I don't think that's happening. Yeah. Despite the rosy optimism you project from your backdrop in Candyland. Okay, let's turn to Jake Tapper questioning Mike Waltz, because if there's one thing that can get, CNN hosts and liberals on board with Trump here, it's the fact that anonymous U.S. officials have accused Russia of helping Iran target U.S. service members, doing exactly what the U.S. helps Ukraine do to Russians in Ukraine. But if Russia is doing that to us, that's a no-no. So here's Jake Tapper asking Mike Waltz about that.
Tell CNN that Russia has been providing Iran with intelligence to help Iran better target U.S. service members. You said in an interview last week that President Trump will, quote, deal with it accordingly. Here's what President Trump had to say about this on Friday.
You think Putin is helping them?
I think he might be helping them a little bit, yeah, I guess. And he probably thinks we're helping Ukraine, right? China would say the same thing, It's like, hey, they do it and we do it, in all fairness. They do it and we do it.
Do you see an equivalence between the U.S. helping Ukraine defend itself and Russia helping Iran target U.S. service members?
Well, Jake, we've known.
Jake, wouldn't Iran be defending itself against the U.S. military that's attacking it? Like, these people hate the idea that we possibly can be somehow equivalent to bad guy actors. Like, do you see any equivalence?
Right.
Between us doing one thing and the bad guys doing this other thing, even though in the case of Iran, they are being attacked by the U.S. military. So, like, they are defending themselves. And if Russia is helping Iran, then they are helping Iran defend itself. Personally, I strongly doubt Russia's doing it, only because Russia really wants to, I think wants to reach some kind of deal with the U.S. and wants to stay on Trump's good side. I don't see them going out and helping Iran specifically target U.S. service members, which is what the U.S. does with Ukraine. Literally, the U.S. has been essentially running the war in Ukraine, the proxy war in Ukraine, by picking targets, telling Iran where they are, supplying the coordinates, giving the weapons, and telling Ukraine where the Russians are, giving Ukraine the weapons, and all Ukraine does basically is press the button like of when to fire, but the U.S. does everything else. And I just strongly doubt Russia's doing the same thing. But who knows? If they are doing the same thing, then they're doing the same thing. Then there is an equivalence.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's so funny that like these people are like Pavlovian, like they hear Russia and they like come drooling. Like that's the only moral framing. The thing I think that they're most upset about with this entire unnecessary war of choice that's killed so many civilians so far that they never mention, obviously. And then occasionally they mention the servicemen, the service people. They're upset that it's potentially going to ease sanctions on Russia.
They're extremely upset about that. Yeah. And that's what might get liberals who maybe were on the fence here about supporting Trump, that might get them on board.
Exactly.
Because we can't have Putin winning anything. And Putin has benefited because, after cutting off all the energy coming through the Strait of Hormuz and coming from Iran, other countries need energy sources. So they've had to go back to Russia, and Putin's like, sure, yeah. Like, we'll sell it to you.
Yeah.
So, and some people are not happy about that.
Yeah, absolutely absurd. Let's keep going with this clip, especially because I want to see how his background appears in this one. Hopefully they move the State of the Union thing out of the way.
Russia and Iran have this symbiotic, have this strategic.
I feel totally cheated. I want Candyland.
Is that a Candyland?
Yeah, where or maybe Jake Tapper was like, that looks too fun and it's too distracting. Cover him up with the State of the Union background.
Yeah. Fox News is a lot more fun.
It is, yeah.
For some time now. I'll tell you what Russia has lost out of this. They've lost their biggest manufacturer of the Shahed drones. Russia's been licensing those drones for quite some time and hitting Ukraine with it. All the more reason why we need to defang this regime, and all the more reason that they cannot have a nuclear weapon. And
by the way, we should have a drinking game where it's like whenever they use their talking points. So it's defang, short-term gain for short-term pain for long-term gain. We could do like a mashup.
Defang definitely got circulated in a memo.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
talk about defanging that, talk about defanging the regime. Everything is done to, paint a caricature of Iran, as you talked about, as being this like wild, out of control state.
Yeah.
When really, honestly, they've if you listen to Abbas Araghchi, the foreign minister, incredibly poised, and tried to negotiate in good faith an agreement. Everyone who was there for the Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner talks with Iran all says the same thing, that Iran had basically gone way farther than they did under the JCPOA, and they're willing to basically have zero stockpiling of enrichment. But Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner came back and told Trump, yeah, they bragged to us about building nuclear bombs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
More Mike Waltz.
I'll just point out, too, because a lot of critics out there are making hay of this. It was President Trump.
Okay, so he's not in Candyland, but I think maybe now he's in heaven. Check out that like halo of light on his forehead.
That put sanctions on Russia's largest oil producer, Rosneft. He also put sanctions on Lukoil. The Biden administration did not do that for many years. They only did a kind of a pinprick action at the very end of the administration. He also took tough action on India. And now he's put a temporary pause on that in order to calm energy markets. I think these are all pragmatic, common sense approaches while we deal with the Iranian regime.
But surely Russia helping Iran target our service members is upsetting and distressing, and action needs to be taken.
I mean, it would be one thing if it was just Iran doing it, but I mean, now it's really bad because Russia's helping them with it, and action must be taken.
And Jake, like, what action do you want?
Yes,
like,
good question.
What action do you want? Like, there's already every sanction possible on Russia. There's already a proxy war going on where the U.S. forces are helping Ukrainians kill Russians. So, like, what more action do you want here? This is the problem with the Ukraine proxy war. It's like, whatever, forgetting like the factual background, all those sabotage peace opportunities that we've talked about endlessly that never get mentioned on corporate TV. Like, just Russia's a nuclear power. So, like, what more do you want to do, Jake? You know? And if you really want action, just like join the military and share with them your ideas, like rather than pretending to be a journalist.
This reminds me so much of the way that Jake Tapper is so upset about how the United States arms Israel as it commits a genocide. Just kidding. He would never, ever say anything like that because he doesn't consider it a genocide, and he doesn't care about the United States arming Israel because he wants them to. But just the double standards are so repulsive. I think, do we have some more of that clip of them in heaven? I think there's more of that, right? Or do we play the full thing? I don't think so, right?
Well, I'm not going to get into leaked assessments of what intelligence is being provided or not. I just can and won't do that. But I'll tell you, if they are doing,
look at how worried Jake Tapper is by the idea that maybe we're not going to invade Russia or put sanctions back on there. He's really scared. Actions must be taken.
Doing it certainly hasn't been effective, because the Iranian Air Force, air defenses, missile forces, and Navy have been completely decimated.
Well, I thought it'd be a good thing at this point, since we're talking about the Iran being portrayed as a snake and having to defang them. Who better to talk about this than Thomas Friedman, who famously wrote an op-ed in the New York Times comparing various leaders in the resistance axis to animals and insects, so snake-like. And let's take a listen to what Thomas Friedman, New York Times columnist, and as Ben Norton likes to say, a journalist who starts a lot of his pieces with, so I was in a cab in insert country or city in Beirut. Let's take a listen to what he had to say when asked by Meet the Press about Iran.
Welcome back. And joining me now is New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman. Tom, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Great to be here, Kristen. Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you here for some perspective.
I gave you the time code for that.
Right now, I did have the opportunity to talk.
121, I believe. It's in the doc. Hold on.
Because the president said that one of the things that surprised him most was the fact that Iran is, in fact, taking aim at its Arab neighbors. And the president indicating that that was something that they were not anticipating. How have those attacks?
By the way, so just to clarify, once again, no one is making the point that it's because there are U.S. bases. None of the hosts of news shows ever make that point. So they make it look like this irrational, disloyal thing. Like, why would they do this to their potential allies? Friedman will explain a little bit, but I just wanted to play some of this. Let's go back to that.
By Iran complicated the dynamic of this overall conflict. It's become a regional conflict.
Well, you know, one of the strategies the Iranians have employed against America now for 40 years in various different conflicts is what I call the strategy of out crazy. We will out crazy you, okay? The reason the Israelis have probably done better than any other country against Iran is they will not be out crazy. And so that's always been
So this is like, I'm going to give him like a mixed review here, right? Because I don't love the fact that he's saying that Iran's strategy has been to out crazy. I don't know how they've been out crazying when they've been using restraint and trying to negotiate. And the crazy people are the ones in the United States, the leaders there. Again, so much projection, right? Iran is this crazy, fanatical, fundamentalist, theocratic nation. When really, as we know, the people running the military, for instance, or the Department of War, Pete Hegseth actually wants rapture. He's a fundamentalist Christian. So this narrative of them being crazy is just is in itself crazy because they've been the ones who have been rational. But I want to give them credit for at least acknowledging that Israel is the craziest. At least acknowledging that they're being insane. So I give him like a mixed review.
An Iranian strategy. I did not expect them to attack their Arab Gulf neighbors, but you can understand why. They thought that's where they're most vulnerable. The American bases there are vulnerable, and they hope to create a lobby of Arab Gulf states to pressure the president to end the war. It will have long-term implications, though, for Iran's relations with those states. Remember, Iranians, a lot of them bank their money in those Gulf states. A lot of them.
So I just think it's really rich and incredible that Thomas Friedman, who wrote an op-ed about why it's useful to understand the Middle East through the animal kingdom. That was the title, Understanding the Middle East Through the Animal Kingdom. He's the person who best explained why Iran, which he accuses of being crazy, is doing what it's doing with the Gulf neighbors. Like, this is where you have to go on mainstream media to understand why they're doing it. Because everyone else in the media is pretending it makes no sense. Why are they attacking their neighbors? And he just laid out, well, there are U.S. bases there, and that's where the U.S. is most vulnerable. So thank you, Thomas Friedman, for being the voice of like peace on corporate media.
My favorite Thomas Friedman quote, and we're not going to play the clip, but you can look it up if you're interested, where this was during the U.S. invasion of Iraq, and he went on Charlie Rose, and he was so excited that the U.S. was invading Iraq, and he said, what we got to see is American boys and girls going house to house from Basra to Baghdad and basically saying, which part of the sentence don't you understand? That we're going to have our freedom whether you like it or not. And if you don't like it, then suck on this.
Yeah, that was amazing.
That's literally what he said. That, like,
Suck
you know, he wanted to see young American working class soldiers go harass ordinary Iraqi civilians and say, suck on this. Somehow for freedom. I don't know. Some freedom. There's some freedom involved there. I don't know. That's Thomas Friedman. So I think maybe he's been humbled by how insane that statement was. So now he's showing a little bit less crazy on
exactly,
he's still totally, of course, portraying Iran in the way that actually he should be portraying himself and the governments that he whitewashes.
But he then again, he is like the voice of reason when it comes to why they're doing this in the Gulf to their Gulf neighbors, which is saying so much that he's the voice of reason. And again, even though Iran is not at all crazy, I will give him credit for saying that Israel is the craziest.
Okay, let's skip ahead to Kevin Hassett, clip 8, Wilson, because one question hanging over all this is, hey, how much is this whole war on Iran costing on top of the massive price hikes that we're seeing? Like, how much money is the U.S. government spending that could be going to things like, I don't know, giving people health care? Kevin Hassett, who is Trump's top economic advisor, he has an answer.
is this war going to cost? Because I know the Pentagon briefed it's going to be about $11.3 billion. Do you need to ask Congress for more money to pay for what you're doing?
I think right now we've got what we need. Whether we have to go back to Congress for more is something that I think that Russ Vogt and OMB will look into. But the latest number, you said 11.3. The latest number I was briefed on was 12. And so it's consistent. So this is something.
He really needs to blow his nose. He sounds very stuffed up.
That we've got.
Sorry.
I like how cheerfully he's delivering the news that actually the war is costing even more money than we thought. He's like, you said it was 11.3 billion. I was just told it was 12 billion.
Oh
That's how much we're spending on this war of aggression that is causing global
evil.
chaos. And it could be more. I don't know, but we're good for now. So anyway, and never mind, we could be using this money to give you health care.
I know, really.
Yes. He's very cheerful about it. It's pretty funny. Okay, let's turn to Senator Mark Warner. He is a career hawk. He loves regime change wars, but this one is so criminal and so mendacious that even Mark Warner has had to stand up to it. So here he is.
A year ago that the country's intelligence leaders sat before your committee and provided testimony at the Worldwide Threats Briefing. And at that point, the testimony was, quote, "We continue to assess Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and that Khamenei has not reauthorized the nuclear weapons program he suspended in 2003. Clearly, Israel disagreed with that U.S. assessment, and they persuaded President Trump. Were those U.S. intelligence leaders wrong?
No, they were not. There was no imminent threat to the United States, and I don't believe there was even an imminent threat to Israel from Iran. Over a period of time, particularly with the ballistic missile capability, Israel would be more under threat. The decision to go to war in this case was a choice by President Trump. And as I was racing through, I won't go through the whole list again, but it was regime change, get rid of the enriched uranium, get rid of their missiles, sink the Navy. I'm not sure we have reached successful conclusion on any of those four, particularly on the last point, the Navy. They're still, have hundreds and hundreds of these speedboats that they can plant mines in the Strait of Hormuz, which they've already partially mined. And now we're in this circumstance where he's going to decide, I guess when he feels it in his bones, I think was the quote the president used. And is that the criteria when we've got literally 13 service members killed? And I got a lot of those sailors on the Ford that are home ported in Norfolk, Virginia, and waiting for him to feel right in the bones, that doesn't seem to be the right criteria.
What we will get an update.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be the right criteria for a president to make decisions of war and peace over what he feels in his bones. I mean, Mark Warner is being extremely diplomatic there, but at least he is challenging the premise, one of the various pretexts for this war of aggression, which is that Iran was some sort of imminent threat. And Mark Warner, who has access to all the intelligence, confirms what is obvious to everyone, that there was no imminent threat and there was no nuclear weapons program. And for a leading Democrat to do that, they don't always do that when it comes to these foreign wars. They're usually on board with them. Like, for example, during the Iraq War, so many top Democrats like Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton were parroting the Bush administration's lies. So that is one difference from the past. That even a pro-war hawk like Mark Warner feels compelled to stand up to Trump, or at least somewhat, not as much as we would like. Okay, let's turn next to Republican Congress member Dan Crenshaw.
You were with us. We spoke about you felt the need for moral clarity. That was a phrase you used for some within your own party, specifically around anti-Semitism in this country. I want to read for you a few things that some Republican lawmakers said this week. Andy Ogles of Tennessee said America's a product of English Christian culture. Muslims don't belong in American society. Florida's Randy Fine said we need more Islamophobia, not less. Fear of Islam is rational. And Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama posted a picture of the 9/11 attack next to the New York City mayor at dinner, breaking his fast at Ramadan with the phrase, "The enemy is inside the gates." What do you think of this language? And should Republican leaders speak up about it?
I still think it's fairly fringe. I mean, like, the truth of the matter is radical
Fringe. Okay, she just gave you multiple examples of elected officials saying this. And Randy Fine, of course, has also said if he has to choose between dogs and Muslims, he's going to choose dogs.
Well, Islamism is bad, right? We've always known that. That should not be a controversy.
Okay, this is just so cowardly. Okay, so first he says these comments, these Islamophobic comments, he's like, this is fairly fringe. It's fairly fringe, like with a little vocal fry. He's like, this is fairly fringe. It's like, dude, it's actually 3 members of your party, like
exactly.
Colleagues. And you're the same guy who joined with everybody else pretty much in Congress to censure Congressman Rashida Tlaib when she called for equality in Palestine.
Yeah.
So, you didn't deem that to be like fringe enough to just ignore. You felt compelled to basically censor someone for demanding equal rights for Palestinians.
Right.
Okay. And then
he probably thinks that's radical Islam.
Yeah. So and
Islamism.
It's fairly fringe. And then he says, and then he's kind of trying to say, but they have a point. Because we all agree that radical Islam is bad.
Right.
Got it.
I still think it's fairly fringe. I mean, like, the truth of the matter is radical Islamism is bad.
He sounds like a Valley Girl.
I know he really does.
It shows that radical Islam is bad.
Radical Islamism is really bad.
And Islamophobia is fairly fringe.
I know, it is really hilarious.
Bad. Right, we've always known that. That should not be a controversial statement at all.
But that's not what they said.
There are plenty of peaceful Muslims who live among us. I realize that, but that's not a mainstream narrative by any stretch.
All right, how about the fact that your president, the leader of your party, campaigned on a Muslim ban?
Right.
And just recently, the other day, he said that Muslim immigrants have bad genetics. He literally said that.
Oh yeah.
He literally said that. So I don't think it actually is fairly. I don't think it actually is fairly.
Right.
I think it's pretty mainstream, at least in the Republican Party.
I think trying to fight it internally probably gives it a lot more air than is necessary. We've seen that to be.
That's interesting. This is a guy who has Margaret Brennan, and kind of props to her for saying, like, okay, you talk about anti-Semitism. What about the rampant Islamophobia? But do you think he would say if someone was like, we should fight anti-Semitism, he'd be like, I don't think we should give it more oxygen.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like the premise of the question is false because they're drawing an equivalence between what they call anti-Semitism,
right?
Which really should be called anti-Jewishness because not all Semitic people are Jewish. In fact, most are not. And in fact, most Jewish people aren't even Semitic. Like, I think, like my family's from Ukraine. I don't think that qualifies as Semitic. But anyway, but they're drawing. But what they call anti-Semitism, quote unquote, or anti-Jewishness, really is just criticizing Israel.
Of course, right.
So they're drawing an equivalence between criticism of Israel and Islamophobia. Islamophobia is a real thing. And
it's gotten people killed.
It's an actual form of bigotry. Criticizing Israel, there's nothing bigoted about it. In fact, it's against bigotry.
Right.
You're criticizing a Jewish supremacist state.
Exactly. Yeah.
The case is, there's a Republican conflict ongoing right now over Israel and the anti-Semitism issues, and so. One could make the argument that speaking out against it has only inflamed it. So, look, I still think that's very fringe. I don't think that's.
Yeah, but you wouldn't make that argument because you're constantly, smearing people who criticize Israel as anti-Jewish.
Right.
And again, I mean, look, I haven't checked the roll call, but I am very confident that he voted to censure Rashida Tlaib when she called for a free Palestine from the river to the sea.
Yeah, But again, he literally speaks out about anti-Semitism, and he's now saying maybe we shouldn't be speaking out against it. Just pick a narrative. Yeah, Dan Crenshaw says Congress should vote to remove Rashida Tlaib if accusations of ties. This is not partisan. Oh, sorry, this is something else. Well, apparently they tried to accuse her of being tied to terrorist-linked organizations. So, but he was critical of her rhetoric.
That's certainly not the administration's position, and we're going to go after radical Islam. That's why we need to fund agencies like DHS, and that's what we're going to do.
All right, totally inconsistent word salad, but you know what? Because we brought up anti-Semitism, it's really important to give voice to anti-Semitism one-man watchdog, and that is Jake Tapper. Let's hear what he had to say to Cory Booker about anti-Semitism.
Anti-Jewish
adventurism abroad.
Well,
so let's turn to
but he doesn't call it that. Okay, but yes, anti-Jewishness,
issues, but his adventurism abroad.
So let's turn to domestic issues, because in Michigan this week, an attacker rammed a vehicle full of explosives into a synagogue and preschool, was only preventing from carrying out a mass murder because of the quick action of security officials. Your wife, congratulations on your marriage, by the way. Your wife is Jewish. So I'm sure you would have cared about this before, but you have a Jewish wife and presumably will have a Jewish family. So this is personal.
You know, there's been a lot of speculation about Cory Booker's personal life, and you know, it's his business, but he's such a tool of AIPAC, and he's so just opportunistic that you know, you have to wonder if marrying a Jewish wife was like a political move. Now, you know, it's not fair to him because maybe it's a genuine thing, but given that there's been a lot of speculation about him, and you know, I think that's a fair question to raise. But with a politician, they are so cynical, and everything is viewed through the prism of what can help me get elected president. That I don't know. I just can't rule it out. At the same time, maybe it's totally legit, and all the happiness to Cory Booker and family. But I don't know. Cory Booker is just so dishonest that I'm sorry. I just can't help but wonder.
Do you think there's a lot of anti-Semitism on the right and the left, both? Do you think that your party, the leaders of your party, are doing enough to call out anti-Semitism?
Oh my God. Can we give this a rest? Okay.
No, Aaron. Because now, especially because he's going to have a Jewish family, he really needs to speak out about this. I mean, reminder that Jake Tapper is someone who fabricated out of full cloth the claim that Rashida Tlaib had said that Dana Nessel, the Attorney General of Michigan, was biased. She did say she was biased, but he said it was because, or he picked up the lie from Nessel that it was because Nessel was Jewish. And then he stated that as fact, as if Rashida Tlaib had said it's because she's Jewish.
I wish there was an app you could have like on your TV that like whenever someone says anti-Semitism, it just like mutes it, like bleep, or bleep, so you don't have to hear it.
Or what about the "No Jew for You" policy?
Well, or you come on and you hear our voice saying "No Jew for you,"
exactly,
no Jew for you, because you've totally exploited the historical suffering of the Jewish people to justify Israel's genocide in Gaza. So "No Jew for you," Jake Tapper. And yes, if only your television screen could display that. If Jake Tapper starts talking about anti-Semitism, quote unquote, instead we just hear "No Jew for you."
Yeah.
Yes, I would love that.
Yeah, but it would come up. So it would be a lot of his monologues would have that, but that's okay. It just may get boring, but better than the anti-Semitism thing. Yeah.
I could host a whole show just called "No Jew for You," where I just call out Jake Tapper,
I think it's good,
exploiting anti-Jewishness to show for Israel.
In the Democratic Party,
I think whenever you take hate, no religious group in America has seen the spike of anti-Semitism that we're seeing, but I also see rising hate against other religious groups as well. As soon as you try to lay a partisan lens over it, you weaken the moral call for America to reject hatred.
All right. Well, shout out to Cory Booker for acknowledging that there's rampant Islamophobia. I don't remember the news really making a big deal out of the Palestinian child who was murdered, stabbed to death, whose mother was also stabbed, who survived shortly after October 7th. But I do want to show people the kind of person we're dealing with Jake Tapper. Jake Tapper is someone who really cares about rape and sexual assault, and that's why he talked about it so much happening in Gaza, committed by, in Israel, committed by Hamas, that mass campaign. It turned out it didn't, and he never apologized for it, nor has he spoken out against the documented on video and in Israeli media actual rape campaign perpetuated by Israel. So again, this is a really cool thing that Western media does. They report on a mass rape campaign that didn't happen. They don't retract it when that is proven, and then they totally ignore the rape campaign that does happen, that is documented. Now, I want to just point out that last week, I believe on Thursday through Friday Free for All, we showed a clip of Emily Schrader, who's an American who's moved to Israel. She presents herself as an American Israeli journalist. Jake Tapper thought it would be appropriate to have her on to literally speak about what is happening on the ground in Iran. And surprise, surprise, her point was that Iranians want to be bombed. I want to take show you what something that Emily Schrader's boyfriend posted recently. So let's show this tweet. Okay. I'm here together with Major A, commander of Force 100, who can
zoom in, Wilson, so we can see that more.
Yeah. Okay. Let me know. I'm here together with Major A, commander of Force 100, who can finally smile under the mask because the truth has come to light. And if you scroll down, you'll see this very moving photo of Yosef Hadid, who is Emily's boyfriend. There he is posing with a rapist who has so much to celebrate because Israel just investigated these rapists and decided that they were not guilty, even though this was documented on video as they engaged in a gang rape, which resulted in the hospitalization of a Palestinian detainee. So it is so good that Jake Tapper brings on people who are dating someone like that, who literally poses with a rapist and celebrates his freedom. Can you imagine?
Well, if there's one thing you can always count on here on Useful Idiots is we can make fun of Jake Tapper all day. He never gives us a shortage of material to work with. And so thank you, Jake, for your latest contribution to the show. And thank you for tuning in to Useful Idiots Monday morning. Katie, anything you want to plug for the Katie Halper Show this week?
Oh yeah, tomorrow we're going to have on Norman Finkelstein. It's been a while. We're bringing back the Norm.
Okay.
At 7 p.m. YouTube.com/the Katie Halper Show. Yeah. And what about you, Aaron? Anything you would like to mention?
Tomorrow, if you're not watching the Katie Halper Show and you're in New York City, it's a very specific audience here. Come to the screening I'm doing with the director of Palestine 36. This film was Palestine's submission to the Academy Awards this year. The director is named Annemarie Jacir, and we'll be doing a Q&A and a screening of the film. If you're in New York City, it's at the Angelica Theater, Tuesday, March 17th. Tickets are in the show notes for this episode. Hope to see you there if you are around.
And you know what? I forgive you. If you're in New York City, you can go to that. You can always watch my show later. So go to that. And I wish if I were in New York, I would definitely be going to that.
All right. That is Useful Idiots Monday morning. Our website is usefulidiotspodcast.com. Go there to support us and get bonus content. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.